So we've moved on to our waistband of our triple Playtime shorts. We've already sewed the waistband into a loop. See, I sewed the short ends together to make a loop. I'm going to go ahead and press the seam to one side. Just makes it a little bit easier. So first step we're going to do is we are going to fold our waistband in half and press it. Get that. Here we go. Okay. So we have it in half. And I'm just going to press it here. Other side. And then what we're going to do is after we have it pressed in half, what we're going to do is we're going to take, I use a hem gauge, and we're going to do 1/4 of an inch on our hem gauge, and then we're going to open the waistband back up, and then we are going to press the raw edges in a 1/4 of an inch. So that's where your hem gauge comes in handy. You can find those at really wherever they sell sewing supplies. So 1/4 of an inch here. And you're going to do that you're going to do it all the way around your waistband. And you're actually going to do it on both sides. So you're going to have your waistband and both ends are going to be pressed in a 1/4 of an inch. So once you finish, I'm gonna go ahead and finish pressing, and then we'll come back and talk about how we're going to attach it to our shorts. Okay, so now we have our waistband all pressed. So if you'll notice, we have our center crease, and then we also have on each side the 1/4 of an inch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to attach the waistband to our shorts. So what you want to do is you want to start in the back, and you want to find the seam. I always put the back seam of the seam of the waistband in the back of the pants, and we're going to start on the inside of the shorts. So you just want to match up the back seam of your pants and the seam of your waistband, and then pin. And then you're going to go all the way around, and the waistband should be the same length as your shorts. So there will be no stretching, there'll be no easing. They should just fit in there perfectly if you're using your seam allowance correctly. And then you just, and I should mention you're working on the inside of your shorts, so the wrong side, and you're attaching the waistband right sides to the wrong side. And that'll make more sense when we start sewing. But so on the inside of your shorts, let's see if I would flip it out. So here we're on the wrong side of our fabric for our shorts, but we're attaching the right side of the fabric of our waistband. And so you see that as I'm finished pinning, I don't have any extra fabric in the pants or the waistband. It fits just perfect. So now that we're all clipped here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our sewing machine. Not, I don't really use my serger for this step because it just adds too much bulk to the seam. So what we're going to do is we are going to sew just right along that 1/4 inch crease that we made to attach our waistband. So as soon as I'm going to go to the sewing machine and do that and be right back. Okay, we've completed the first step of our waistband construction. So you'll notice that, you know, I started at this back waist, the waistband seam, and I went all the way around the waistband and closed up. So you don't need to leave an opening for this first step. So, and if you'll remember, we worked on the inside of our shorts, and now we have that attached waistband. So this is what you should have now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that waistband and flip it up, and then keep that other 1/4 inch that we made and fold that down. And this is where it helps. That's why we did all that ironing and pressing before, so we can have nice crisp edges, and it really just makes things easier. So don't skip that step. Okay, so now we're going to pin our waistband down to the right side of our fabric, and we're going to cover up that seam that stitching we just did. And this is the case where I do use pins because the clips, they don't work on this part. So we're just going to go around and pin our waistband down. Now you want to remember, so we're going to pin, but you want to remember that you need to leave an opening, about a 2-inch, 1.5 inch opening, so you can thread your elastic through. And I always do that on the back of the shorts. And again, you don't want to skip the pinning. You don't want to, because your seam can get all wonky. And this stitching that we're going to be doing here now, it's going to be able to be seen. So you want to make sure it looks, it has that nice top finishing look to it. Okay, so here's our last pin. And you want to make sure that you start your stitching and then stop your stitching and leaving this open, so we're able to thread the elastic through. So I am going to go ahead and stitch on my waistband. I stitch about 1/8 inch from the edge, and I use a little bit of a wider stitch length. It's up to you. It just kind of gives it that nice top stitching look. And we will be back to thread in our elastic. All right, so we have our second step of our waistband, and we have it stitched down, but you remember that we left the little bit of the opening. So you'll see there's a little bit of the opening, so we can now thread our elastic through. So we're going to go get our elastic. So with the elastic, what I do is you need 1-inch knit elastic. The reason for the knit elastic is it's just softer, and I don't know, I prefer it over the woven elastic or anything like that. It just feels softer on their waist and kind of has a little bit more give. But so for the elastic, when you're measuring out your elastic piece, what I always make sure I do is I always make sure I kind of give it a good stretch. And it'll bounce back, but there'll still be a little bit where it doesn't bounce back, and you kind of give it a stretch out, and that's good because when you're threading your elastic through, it can stretch a little bit, and then it might not be the right size. So, and remember, you can always customize your elastic size to fit your little one's waist. So the cut chart is just a guideline. And it's kind of, and if you need a smaller waist and say you made a size 5 shorts, but you need a size 4 waist, cut the size 4 waist elastic, and you can do that. My little one just happens to fit into the 5 perfectly. So, and I use a rotary cutter when I cut elastic, just easier. I just zip it down at the line and there we have it. And to thread the elastic through, you can use a safety pin. I don't have that. Well, you can use a safety pin, or they have little bobbin tools. I have one, but as you can tell, I never use it because I always just use the safety pin because it's just always right there, a little bit easier accessible. I use a bigger safety pin for bigger elastic and then a smaller pin for smaller elastic. So what you do is you just insert that safety pin and that elastic in through that opening you left, and then just feed it through that casing of the waistband. Now when you're pulling it through, because obviously your shorts are longer than the elastic, make sure that you are leaving some of that elastic out, or else you'll kind of have to pull it all the way through and start over, because you'll need to be able to sew the elastic closed, and we'll do that here. Let me get this going here. All right, and so now there's my safety pin. I just give it a little tug. And then another thing you want to be aware of when you're pulling that elastic through is make sure it's not twisted in there, because then that'll make your waistband sit all funny. So just make sure that it's not. Oops. Now it's not wanting to come through here. It's being a little stubborn. Here we go. Okay, so now you want to make sure that your elastic isn't all twisted. And so I always kind of give it a feel around in there, and I kind of pull that out here. Okay, so now we have our elastic. And another reason why you want to make sure that it's not twisted is because now we have to make a loop out of our elastic. So we'll take it over to the sewing machine and sew those ends together. And I use a zigzag stitch just because it stretches and it moves, so that just kind of gives that waistband a little bit more of a leeway. And I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine and close it up. Okay, so I've closed up my elastic. I've attached my elastic to each other, and I overlapped it, and you'll notice that I just did a couple of rows of zigzag stitches just to kind of make sure it stays nice and secure. So we are so close to being done. So just go ahead and pull that elastic and kind of feed that elastic to the inside and kind of into that waistband. And so now we are just going to stitch up that last little bit, and then we are all done. It's so exciting. These are such a fun, cute sew, and so easy, and they really do stitch up fast. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and top stitch my waistband closed, that casing closed right here. When you're sewing it shut, make sure you don't catch your elastic, or else your waistband will sit funny and it won't look right, and it kind of won't stretch right. So just make sure you're just kind of catching that edge and not actually stitching through the elastic that's inside there. Okay, we will be right back. Okay, got that all closed up. Got our threads trimmed, and now we'll just kind of evenly distribute the fabric all along the elastic so it looks nice. And we are done with our triple Playtime shorts. How cute and fun are those? I just love the ruffle. I love the pleat too. And I love that these can be made in knit or woven. Anything, you can mix them. You can do a contrasting ruffle, or you can add like a knit waistband if you want to, but it's just so fun. So now what I usually do is I just kind of give it a good look over and kind of trim any threads that need to be trimmed, or I just kind of call this my cleanup stage. And we are all done. So thank you for joining us for the sew along of the Triple Playtime shorts. And of course, if you have any questions, please let us know over at Anna Lane. Thank you so much.